I froze, not because of what I saw, but because of what I felt. Something dark knew my name, and I didn't know my authority. But that night, everything changed, because I received a revelation that shattered fear and unlocked a power I didn't even know I carried. If this is opening your eyes even a little, pause for a second, reflect, and ask yourself, have I been living beneath the authority that's already mine? Authority being delegated, not earned, is a truth that reshapes how you see yourself and how you respond to spiritual opposition. Many people struggle because they believe authority comes from personal strength, discipline, or spiritual performance. They think if they pray enough, fast enough, or become good enough, then they will qualify to exercise power over darkness. But that mindset keeps authority just out of reach, turning it into something to chase rather than something already given. Delegated authority works differently. It is not rooted in your ability, but in the one who assigned it to you. Just like a police officer does not enforce the law based on personal strength, but on the authority of the government backing them, spiritual authority operates on the same principle. The power is not in the individual, it is in the position they have been placed in. When that position is understood, confidence replaces hesitation. This means you don't approach spiritual resistance hoping to win. You approach it knowing the outcome has already been established. The struggle many face comes from trying to act powerful instead of recognizing they already carry authority. Effort replaces rest, and striving replaces certainty. But when authority is seen as a gift rather than a reward, everything shifts internally. You stop measuring your worthiness and start standing in what has been assigned to you. Delegated authority also requires recognition and acceptance. It can exist and still remain unused if a person is unaware of it or unsure about it. Doubt weakens expression, not because authority disappears, but because hesitation prevents it from being exercised. Once the mind is renewed to understand that authority is granted, not achieved, boldness begins to rise naturally. This kind of authority is steady, not emotional. It does not fluctuate with feelings or circumstances. Whether the situation feels intense or calm, the authority remains the same because its source does not change. The moment you stop trying to earn what has already been given is the moment you begin to operate in it with clarity and confidence, shifting from uncertainty into quiet, unshakable assurance. Spiritual identity is the foundation upon which authority stands, because what you believe about who you are determines what you permit and what you confront. Many people attempt to exercise authority while carrying an uncertain or distorted sense of identity, and that creates hesitation. When identity is unclear, actions become inconsistent. One moment there is boldness, and the next there is doubt, simply because the person is not rooted in a settled understanding of who they truly are. Identity answers the internal question, do I have the right to stand here? Without that answer firmly established, even granted authority feels distant or fragile. It's like having access to something but lacking the confidence to use it. The mind begins to negotiate with situations it was meant to overcome, not because the authority is absent, but because identity has not been fully embraced. When spiritual identity is understood, something shifts deeply. You stop reacting from fear or insecurity and start responding from certainty. There is a quiet confidence that doesn't need to prove itself. It doesn't come from arrogance, but from alignment, knowing that your position is not self-created, but divinely established. That awareness removes the need to strive for validation, because identity is no longer based on feelings, past failures, or external opinions. A weak sense of identity often leads people to tolerate what they should resist. They question whether they are worthy, capable, or strong enough, and that questioning creates an opening for intimidation. But a strong identity closes that gap. It produces stability in thought and action, allowing a person to remain steady even when circumstances feel overwhelming. This identity is not formed overnight. It grows through consistent exposure to truth and a willingness to accept it personally. It requires rejecting old labels and internal narratives that contradict what has been established about you. As identity becomes clearer, authority becomes more natural. You don't have to force it or imitate confidence. It flows as a direct expression of who you know yourself to be, creating a life that reflects clarity instead of confusion. Faith is what brings authority to life, because without belief, authority remains present but inactive. It's possible to have something fully given and yet never experience its effect, simply because it is not trusted or acted upon. Faith is the bridge between what is already established and what is actually demonstrated. Without that bridge, authority stays theoretical, something understood in words but not expressed in reality. Many people assume that authority automatically produces results, but authority requires cooperation through belief. If doubt dominates the mind, it interferes with the expression of that authority, not because authority has weakened, but because the person hesitates to act on it. Faith removes that hesitation. It creates a readiness to respond without overanalyzing or second-guessing. Instead of questioning whether something will work, faith moves with quiet certainty that it already does. Faith is not about forcing yourself to feel confident. It is about being convinced of truth at a deeper level. Feelings may fluctuate, but faith anchors itself in what is known rather than what is felt. This is why someone can act with authority even in moments where emotions are unstable. Faith stabilizes action by shifting focus away from internal uncertainty and toward established reality. When faith is active, it simplifies response. There is no need for repeated attempts or emotional escalation. One clear, steady action becomes enough because it is backed by conviction. Without faith, people tend to compensate with effort, repeating words, raising intensity, or trying to build momentum through emotion. But true authority does not need reinforcement through volume or repetition. It operates through alignment with belief. Faith also grows through use. The more it is exercised, the more natural it becomes to act without hesitation. Each experience reinforces confidence, making future responses more immediate and less conflicted. Over time, this creates consistency, where authority is no longer something you try to activate, but something that flows naturally through your actions. When faith fully connects with authority, there is a noticeable shift from uncertainty to clarity. Actions become deliberate, words carry weight, and responses are no longer shaped by fear or doubt, but by a settled conviction that what has been given is real and effective. Words carry power because they are the primary means through which authority is expressed and enforced. Authority may exist internally, and faith may activate it, but it is through words that it is released into action. What is spoken is not just sound, it is direction, alignment, and command. Many people underestimate this and treat words casually, not realizing they are either reinforcing their position or weakening it. When words are aligned with truth and spoken with conviction, they become an extension of authority. They set boundaries, establish outcomes, and confront opposition. This is why silence in moments that require response can lead to continued pressure, because authority unspoken is authority unexpressed. It is not enough to believe internally if there is no outward declaration. Words give form to what is already settled within. On the other hand, careless or fearful speech can work against authority. Speaking from doubt, repeating negative expectations, or constantly verbalizing fear creates contradiction. It's like trying to stand firm while your own words are pulling you backward. Consistency between belief and speech is essential because divided expression weakens clarity. When words and conviction align, there is a noticeable strength in what is spoken. Powerful words are not about volume or intensity. They do not require shouting, emotional strain, or repetition to be effective. In fact, the most effective expressions of authority are often calm, direct, and unwavering. This kind of speech reflects certainty rather than desperation. It doesn't try to convince, it simply declares. That difference changes the impact completely. Words also establish patterns over time. Repeated declarations shape mindset, reinforce identity, and strengthen confidence. What you consistently say influences how you think, and how you think influences how you act. This creates a cycle where words and belief continually support each other, building stability. Understanding the power of words changes how they are used. Instead of speaking impulsively or emotionally, there is intentionality. Each statement becomes purposeful, reflecting clarity rather than confusion. Over time, speech becomes more precise, more confident, and more aligned with authority, creating an environment where uncertainty fades and direction becomes clear. Fear weakens dominion because it distorts perception before it ever affects action. It doesn't remove authority, but it makes that authority feel distant, uncertain, or even unusable. When fear enters, it shifts focus away from what is established and places attention on what might happen, what could go wrong, or what feels overwhelming. This internal shift is where its real influence lies, not in changing reality, but in altering how reality is perceived. When someone operates under fear, hesitation follows naturally. Even if they know what to do, they pause, overthink, or second-guess. That hesitation creates a gap between authority and action. It's not that authority is diminished, it's that confidence in using it has been disrupted. Fear introduces questions where there should be clarity, and those questions often go unanswered in the moment, leading to inaction or weakened response. Fear also amplifies the appearance of opposition. Situations feel larger, more intense, and more threatening than they actually are. This exaggeration can make a person feel small or incapable, even when they are fully equipped to respond. The mind begins to focus on the strength of the problem rather than the position of the individual. And that imbalance creates a sense of vulnerability that isn't rooted in truth. Another effect of fear is that it pushes people toward emotional reactions instead of steady responses. Instead of acting from a place of calm authority, they may react with urgency, frustration, or panic. These reactions often lack clarity and consistency, making it harder to stand firm. Authority by nature is stable and controlled, but fear introduces instability, which interferes with clear expression. Overcoming fear doesn't mean it never appears. It means it no longer dictates response. As understanding grows and confidence strengthens, fear loses its ability to dominate thinking. It may still attempt to influence perception, but it no longer controls action. The focus shifts back to what is known rather than what is felt, restoring clarity and steadiness. When fear is no longer leading, dominion becomes more evident. Decisions are made with confidence, responses are direct, and there is less internal conflict. Instead of reacting to pressure, there is a sense of control and composure, allowing authority to be expressed without interference from doubt or intimidation. Revelation changes perspective by bringing clarity where there was once confusion, and that shift in understanding transforms how everything is approached. Before revelation, a person may have information, ideas, or beliefs, but they remain surface level and often unstable under pressure. Revelation, however, moves beyond knowledge into deep conviction. It's the moment when something becomes real internally, not just understood mentally. This kind of clarity affects perception first. Situations that once seemed overwhelming begin to look different, not because they have changed, but because the lens through which they are viewed has changed. Fear loses its intensity, uncertainty loses its grip, and what once felt complicated becomes simple. Revelation removes distortion and replaces it with accuracy, allowing a person to see things as they truly are, rather than as they appear in moments of pressure. With that new perspective comes boldness, not forced boldness or outward bravado, but a quiet, settled confidence that rises naturally. When something is clearly understood, there is no need to hesitate or question it repeatedly. Action becomes more direct because the internal debate has been resolved. Revelation eliminates the internal conflict that often slows people down, replacing it with clarity that leads to decisive response. It also breaks old patterns of thinking. Many limitations exist not because they are real, but because they have been accepted over time. These patterns shape reactions, expectations, and even identity. When revelation comes, it challenges those patterns and exposes them as inaccurate. This can feel disruptive at first, but it creates space for new, stronger ways of thinking to take root. Revelation is not something that can be forced, it is received. It often comes in moments of stillness, reflection, or deep need, when a person is ready to truly see. Once it is received, it cannot easily be ignored or forgotten because it reshapes how everything is interpreted moving forward. As perspective changes, behavior follows. Actions become more aligned, responses more consistent, and confidence more stable. Instead of reacting based on old assumptions or emotional impulses, there is a new foundation guiding every decision. This shift creates a sense of certainty that remains steady, even when external circumstances fluctuate or attempt to challenge it. Demons respond to authority, not emotion, because authority operates from position, while emotion operates from reaction. Emotion can be intense, loud, and even overwhelming, but it does not carry the same structural weight as authority. Authority is stable, established, and rooted in a recognized position, while emotion fluctuates based on circumstances. This is why emotional intensity alone does not produce consistent results in spiritual confrontation, even though it may feel powerful in the moment. When a person relies on emotion, their response often changes with how they feel. One moment, there may be confidence, and the next moment, fear or doubt can interrupt it. This inconsistency weakens effectiveness, not because the person lacks authority, but because their expression is unstable. Authority requires steadiness. It does not rise and fall with internal feelings, but remains constant regardless of pressure. Demons, in this understanding, do not respond to noise, agitation, or panic. Those expressions often reflect internal struggle rather than external command. What they respond to is clarity of command rooted in certainty. A calm but firm declaration carries more weight than an emotional outburst because it reflects confidence in position rather than desperation for change. Authority speaks from assurance, not uncertainty. This is why composure becomes so important. Composure reflects control, and control reflects understanding of position. When a response is steady, direct, and unshaken, it communicates that there is no negotiation taking place. It is not asking for change, it is enforcing it. That distinction separates emotional reaction from authoritative action. Another key aspect is consistency. Authority does not need escalation to become effective. It does not rely on increasing volume or intensity to gain strength. It is already fully established, so expression simply reflects what already exists. When someone understands this, they stop trying to feel powerful and instead focus on standing firm in what is already given. As emotional dependence decreases, clarity increases, responses become more deliberate, less reactive, and more grounded. Instead of being pulled by internal turbulence, there is stability in action. This stability is what allows authority to be expressed cleanly without interference from shifting emotions, making responses clear, direct, and effective even in moments of pressure. Consistency builds strength because authority is not only understood once, it is reinforced through repeated expression. What is practiced becomes natural, and what is natural becomes stable. Many people experience moments of clarity where they understand truth or feel confident, but without consistency, those moments remain isolated. Strength does not come from occasional insight, it comes from repeated alignment with what is known. When authority is exercised consistently, hesitation gradually decreases. The mind becomes trained to respond without overthinking because it recognizes patterns of outcome. Each time authority is used, confidence is reinforced. Each response builds internal stability, making the next response easier and more immediate. Over time, what once required effort begins to flow naturally. Inconsistency, on the other hand, creates internal conflict. One moment there may be boldness, and the next moment doubt may take over. This back and forth weakens confidence because the mind never fully settles into certainty. Without repetition, authority remains theoretical, understood but not fully integrated into behavior. Consistency resolves this by removing unpredictability from response. Strength in this sense is not about intensity, it is about reliability. A steady, repeated application of what is known creates a foundation that does not easily shake under pressure. Just like physical strength is developed through repeated exercise, spiritual strength is developed through repeated expression of authority in daily situations. Small, consistent actions build a deeper sense of confidence than rare, dramatic moments. Consistency also shapes identity over time. When someone repeatedly acts in alignment with authority, they begin to see themselves differently. It becomes harder to separate belief from behavior because both start to reflect the same reality. This alignment produces inner stability, where thought, speech, and action are no longer in conflict. As consistency grows, resistance loses its ability to disrupt. Situations that once caused hesitation no longer have the same effect because the response has been practiced and reinforced. Instead of reacting differently each time, there is a steady pattern of confidence that remains unchanged regardless of circumstance. Over time, this repeated alignment forms a deep, unshakable strength that defines how authority is carried in every moment. In the end, what I learned that night was not just a moment of experience, it was a complete shift in understanding. Everything changed when I realized that authority was never meant to be something I struggled to achieve, but something I must first recognize and then stand in. The battle was never about trying to become powerful enough. It was about awakening to what had already been given. Fear had only survived in my ignorance. Doubt had only spoken where clarity was missing. But once revelation came, the illusion broke. I understood that authority is not loud, emotional, or uncertain. It is settled, calm, and final. It does not negotiate with darkness. It establishes what must be. From that moment, I stopped measuring myself by feelings and started standing in truth. I learned that identity, faith, words, and consistency are not separate ideas. They are all connected threads that shape how authority is expressed in everyday life. When identity is clear, faith becomes steady. When faith is steady, words become powerful. And when all of that is consistent, strength becomes unshakable. What once felt overwhelming no longer carried the same weight, not because the challenges disappeared, but because my perspective had changed. Revelation didn't remove responsibility. It removed confusion. It brought alignment between what is known and how it is lived. And so the greatest lesson of that night remains simple but profound. You do not fight for victory. You enforce what has already been decided. You do not beg for authority. You recognize it, believe it, speak it, and remain consistent in it. Because once that truth is fully seen, fear loses its place, hesitation loses its voice, and a quiet, unshakable confidence begins to define every step forward.